Hello everybody, I hope you're well. I'm Callum at Repair Wins. Repair Wins is an electronics repair business, and I've got something a bit different for you today. It's not this PSP and its nice manly pink colour, no, but it is another games console, and it's inside this fairly scabby looking carry case. So why don't we open it up? There's a big pile of games on the top, and then I'll just pull the machine out, and there you go. It's an original DMG Game Boy from 1989. Which means it's 11 years older than I am. Sorry. Anyway though, it's in really poor condition. It was given to me by a friend. The person doesn't want it back. He found it in his attic. He says it's probably been up there for 15 years, if not longer. And the problem, probably not going to come across too well. Loads of corrosion on those battery terminals. And so you might just think, well, clean the corrosion off and Bob's your uncle. But no, the corrosion has seeped its way down into the body of the console. I know that the screen's here, but the motherboard's up there as well, and it's down here too. So I think the corrosion has basically eaten this motherboard. If it really has been in his attic for 15 years, it's very unlikely it's going to be repaired. But regardless, it's such a cool machine. He said it was going in the bin otherwise. I said, don't throw that thing away, please. So I would like to take it apart, see just how bad the damage is, see if we can clean it up, maybe we can get it fixed. If not, I've got a pretty cool little idea for it. So stick around, I'm going to go to the overhead camera and let's get this thing taken apart and see just what we're working with. 1989 Nintendo, 6 volt, 0.7 watts. I don't think I've been given a charger for it. So surely that's a headphone jack. That'll be the DC in. And then if I take the cover off, it's 6 volts because 1.5 times 4 obviously equals 6. But yeah, you can see just how bad the corrosion is. I'll use the end of this USB cable, so it doesn't look terrible. But down here, it has managed to work its way down into the system. I've never taken one of these apart before, but I don't think it's too difficult from what I've seen on YouTube. 2 screws here, 2 there, and the cover should just lift off. Right, they're removed. Let's pull the back cover off nice and gently. Ooh, I can see what you can't. I'll fold it forwards. Yeah, take a look at that. Has this been repaired before? There's some lines running. What has happened here? My God. Look at all that corrosion. Although luckily, this board here, I think it's avoided most of the damage. So I just need to unplug this screen connector, which should be a case of, oh, one of the plastic posts is snapped off. So this plastic post is snapped, that plastic post is damaged. Has this console been dropped potentially? Let's just try and unplug the 2 halves. I think the best way to do that is to push the console backwards like this, and then I can grab here and I can pull backwards. So, right, there we go. So we're worried about the damage down here. As for the rest of the console, it actually looks to be in pretty good condition, so we might just get away with fixing this. I ended up taking these 2 screws out. Now that I've done that, going to give the board a wiggle. Got to break free the corrosion that's down there. Right, that's all free. If I just grab this in the right places, it'll come out. I think this one is going to be fixed. That's corrosion free. So we can pretty much just ignore this side of the console. Obviously the battery contacts and so on are in here, but you know, they're all user replaceable. So this contact is immaculate. This contact is a little bit warm, but really not too bad. I'll have to reflow some of the solder on the cartridge connector. Otherwise though, I think this Game Boy's gotten very lucky. We're going to start by removing all of the screws, I suppose. So once you're into the console, it's standard Phillips everywhere. And what I'll actually do is dump the screws into this container right here. You know, this console probably isn't even worth all that much. It wouldn't have been any real loss if it had gone in the bin, but to me, I just think that such an old device should be repaired, because this would have cost whoever bought it a lot of money. So there aren't any more screws. Oh, there is. Oh God, I couldn't even tell that was a screw. And if something's corroded, by the way, it can snap or it can break or it can strip out really easily. So I'm going to push down with a lot of force here, okay? So I'm making sure I'm supporting it with the palm of my hand, because you don't want to bend anything. But I'm going to use a lot of force. Yeah. And just crack it free. And now that that's cracked free, I'll be putting this screw straight in the bin. The board comes out, and oh no, dude, that's not getting fixed. Look at the state of that. Can I gently pull the screen off? Try and get a tool under it, and remember, this is a metal tool, so I'm not going to push down with silly force. Just want to see if I can pop the screen off. Right, it's got these 4 little clips. Or at the very least, it's got 2 clips. So let's just bend that clip back towards the machine. There we go. We'll do the same with this clip. Right, screen cable. Because maybe I can desolder this and then solder a new screen on. I think realistically though, we're going to be buying a new screen PCB. It is a bit of a cop-out to buy a part and replace it, but, you know, technician can only do so much. And that is now fully free, but yeah, you've got to desolder this this connector here. But the hope is I can remove the screen, clean up the pads, solder a new screen on, whack the thing back together, and it should work okay, fingers crossed. Because this is so badly corroded, I'm going to stick some flux on here, and I'm just going to apply some heat, and I'm going to let the flux kind of hopefully wash away some of the corrosion. So I saw a video on the internet where the guy was using his hot air station, 35% airflow, 350 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to twist it around so I can see more easily. And we're going to spin the hot air around so we're not melting the plastic. Because there is a chance this screen can be saved. I know the cable is in atrocious condition. But of course, it turns out you can't buy replacements for these screens anymore, which is a massive shame. Obviously there is going to be a little bit of melting happening to the frame. I'm probably going to have to replace this top housing anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. But I'll just apply a bit more flux. I'm going to add some fresh solder to the clip, and I'm going to use some solder wick and try and get rid of it. So the idea is I apply this and it lowers the melting point of the solder that's on there. And oh god, I think I have burnt this screen a little bit. It's gone slightly blue. That's what happens when you've never fixed one of these things before. Cause a little bit of damage. So let's grab some solder wick. And just cross my fingers I can soak up all the old solder. Is there more solder on the other side? Oh, hold on a second, look. The screen bar has got these huge... Well, it's never going to come free if it's like that then, is it? Right, I'm going to have to bend these pieces upwards. Right, so that's bent upwards. We'll do the same for this one. Don't know if it's soldered on the other side. I don't think that it is. Right, we're finally getting that free. Oh dear. Okay, that horrible rusty thing is now out. I'll apply yet more flux. I won't be bothering with that retaining bar myself if I do get this thing repaired. I'll just leave it out. I'm not pulling up on this connector, by the way. I'm just basically holding it, and when it's ready to go, it'll just it'll come free. Oh, right, that's coming free. That's coming free. Right, that's free. I'm going to hold for a minute. Hold for a minute. Screen's gone a bit blue. Not the end of the world. I'd rather remove the screen and cause a bit of damage. As long as the screen still works partially, I can then test if the console's faulty or not. Right, and the screen's soldered down there as well, and there's another screw holding it. I need to find something that's going to hold the screen in place, just like this, and we can desolder that connector as well. Then the plan is we'll clean the motherboard up, assess the damage, and fingers crossed solder the connector back and the screen just works. Let's apply some flux. It should be a lot easier not to burn anything this time. And also this side's in a lot better condition. All I want to do is just clean up, clean up, clean up. As the corrosion on this screen isn't looking quite as bad as first thought. So the screen is now free from this machine. Oh! Yeah, that's corroded alright. Wow. Odds of fixing this thing are basically zero. The reason is, we've even got corrosion down here. You can't get replacement screens for these consoles anymore, so we might be out of options. I'm going to clean up the motherboard, assess the damage, but I don't think this particular screen is going to work. As soon as I tried to clean the screen connector, look at what's happened. It's completely disintegrated on me. This was never going to work. If I push down, these things just want to snap straight off. It's so flimsy and weak. It's I'm not doing any damage at this point because this is never going to get reused. That screen's not coming back, so I'll do a bit of digging on AliExpress or something. Maybe I'll drop lucky and find a screen, but not much hope at this point. I've done a lot of digging, and this is eventually what I've settled on. And you can get all these cool sort of shells with different colours and stuff, but I'm going to go for the original one because otherwise it's not really a Game Boy anymore. I'll modify the grey shell that I have, and then that way this Game Boy is going to have a really, really nice screen, but it'll still have the original buttons, the original shell, the original battery cover, and all of that other sort of stuff. These kits require quite a bit of modification to fit, and it costs £42, which is You know, that does sting a little bit, but the Game Boy is free and I'd like to see it repaired. The new parts have finally arrived. You can see I've got the screen, and it's very small, by the way. If I compare it to this headphones case, look, absolutely tiny. I'm not going to fiddle around with this too much because I don't want to damage it. But then we've got the actual replacement board itself, which looks to be really high quality, to be fair. I was kind of 50-50 on whether I should buy this, but no, I think I've made the right call. The top PCB can pretty much stay as it is, so I'll probably just put that out of the way. It's this bottom half that we're interested in, the one that's got the speaker and all the things rattling around. I'll probably clean these carbon contacts, and then we'll see about just giving the screen a test before we start cutting the housing up and whatnot. But I'm looking forward to getting this fitted either way. Next thing to do is to solder the speaker in. I don't actually think it matters which way around you solder the wires, because no one I've found on the internet could actually say. So what I'm going to do is just put the wires through the top, solder the thing down, and we'll just see how we get on. So I'll just drop some more fresh solder on, because there's obviously flux in the solder. That's going to make sure it's made a really good connection. And then I'm just going to cut the excess off. According to the internet, I need to remove this screw post, and then this piece of plastic right here. My only problem is that all 4 of these screw posts are broken, so there's not really going to be anything actually holding this top cover on. But I guess I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. So what you want for a job like this is a quality pair of wire cutters, and I'm pushing down on them to make sure they're, you know, flat into the top housing. And look at that, it's cut it practically flush. Loads of the videos I was seeing, they had loads of post left over. The best way to do these is to get a pair of needle nose pliers and then wiggle them back and forth. I've not got any to hand, so I am just going to use my wire cutters here again. I'll just quickly go and smooth these up, but yeah, they're basically there. If you were eagle-eyed, you would see that the housing is quite grubby. Not too worried about that at the moment, because what I'm worried about doing is just trimming the housing back. So there's this sort of raised up lip, and I might just kind of cut away this raised up area. So I think I'm basically going to take a permanent marker, draw around the border, and then trim it. I'll try my best to do this then. And I'm going to leave that little bit that's already been filed away, sort of filed out. But there we go. Your file, by the way, on the sides has got a smooth side and a side that will file stuff. So if I'm filing into the corner, as long as I put the smooth side into the corner, and as long as I keep this straight, I can cut away just the material at the bottom. So if you see the material that's here and the material that's there, I've already cut all of that away. As I say, really not a very nice sound, but we're getting there. Right, and then I can just do the top. So it was easy doing the bottom because there was the piece in the middle that was already notched out for me. But now I can sort of just, I guess I'll just do the side one bit at a time, then I'll jump and I'll do this top bit and I'll clean up the bit in the middle. That doesn't really want to cut, you do feel like you're fighting it, but I've managed to cut this. It's not perfectly straight, it doesn't need to be, you just need to get rid of the material. So what I'm going to do is file away the remainder of this stuff, and I'll be able to come back when I've got it all filed down. I've realised this screen was supposed to come with an alignment piece. So the idea was there was a piece of white plastic that's meant to go around here that lines up with the holes and stuff. I can still test the kit though, and hopefully I can find something on the internet that I can 3D print. I remember that the game cartridge connector is a bit corroded. I've not done anything about the battery terminals either. Not worried about that stuff for now. Like I say, I just want to get the screen tested. There we go, that's plugged in. And then we can obviously do the same to the screen end. And then I'll put this face down on the desk. And I'm supposed to connect this and then fold this shut, it looks like. So, this isn't going to be much fun, is it? Right, there we are. Bit of effort required, but that is at least plugged in. Position that a bit better and then... But, oh! Look at that! The Game Boy logo hasn't quite come up properly. I believe it doesn't if you don't have a cartridge installed. But I've not been sold a dud screen, it does work. I just need to do something about the fact that I can't actually screw it down. The user Solo761 on Thingiverse has created a bracket that will apparently work for me. And for some reason he's created about 40 million different files. I've read the description, I've just gone for the default one at the top. And to be honest, that one should be okay. I'm going to remove the two battery terminals, so I've just got to desolder this point here and this point there. To be honest, the one on the left actually looks fine, so if I bring it up to the camera, you can see there's not really any corrosion on it. But I'm going to take it off anyway and clean it with a toothbrush just to be safe. I'm going to take this one off as well. But when these are off the board, I'll then be able to have good access so that I can clean the game cartridge connector as well, and then possibly reflow some of the solder joints too. This Game Boy was built back in the era when they did use lead in the solder, so I'm actually adding lead-free. So for the first time in history, someone has added lead-free to a device that didn't have any lead, because most people don't like working with lead-free solder, though I can't understand why, because I don't have any troubles using it at all. And there you go, look, they both fall out of the board. Solder wick is pretty much just really tightly coiled copper wire. And as the name implies, it wicks away the solder. It's got flux built into it. I'm using some fairly high quality stuff, because you can buy the cheap rubbish and it just doesn't work and you end up hating yourself. There we are, so I've cleared that one out, and then that was the difficult one, and then this one should be a bit easier. There we are, so they're both cleared out now. But that is 100 times better than it was. And it's good that I'm working in this area of the board again, adding some fresh heat and just reflowing the solder joints, because it probably would have worked fine without me doing that. But I don't intend on keeping this Game Boy, I intend on selling it. So you want to make sure you're touching the pin and the via. You don't just want to like put the solder on the tip of the pin. You want to make sure you've got the iron pressed against the pin and it's flat to the via. If you've done any amount of soldering, this isn't a difficult job. There we go. I'm happy with that. A little bit that's sticking up slightly, but I'm just going to leave it as it is. That looks pretty good to me now. The battery terminals are back in the console. Maybe better work has been done, but I don't think I've done it too badly. So I've also put the terminals back in the shell, which I went and cleaned off camera. That should be that, I think. So let's lie the board back on the top. Oh, and you can see the 3D printed piece fits perfectly. Very pleased. So that'll sit on the top, the speaker's already in position, and then it's 6 screws to hold the board down. Screw here, and there should just be one in this bottom left corner by the speaker, and once I've done that, that's pretty much it. Tri-wing, no, right, so I'm just going to put 2 random screws in at the bottom. Just so we can at least have some semblance of a machine that's held together. Right, and for the top of the console, I'm going to need some much longer screws, because some of the posts do still exist. They're just, if the post is meant to come up to here, it only goes down to there, so I just need longer screws to bite into them. Here we go then, I found 4 screws. I fear that they may be slightly too long, but I'm just going to try them out, and if I see any damage at all occurring in the housing, I'm going to stop. Right, the only one that hasn't gone in is this one here. We don't need that to test it. I will just see if I can get it to bite though, because it would be nice to have 4 out of 4. No, it doesn't want to. It's obvious I'm basically going to need to buy a new top housing, or if it happens to hold itself together okay without that screw there, then I might just, you know, leave it and sell the thing as is. Either way though, I can find some batteries and put them in here to test, or I can just use a bench power supply. Remember I said I felt like I was missing screws, so there's where 6 screws potentially go. I'll still be able to test the console. I'm just going to take it apart and do all the rest of the work off camera at this point. I don't want the video to be 10 hours long. I'd do a stasis fix and throw the batteries across the room, but I know for a fact I'll just end up breaking something, so instead I'll just install them like this. I'm not cool enough to do the battery throw trick. You have to be a level 30 Mafia boss, and I am a lowly street thug. That's in there. Look at the quality of that bloody screen. I tilt it like this, you can still see what's on there, and even flipping better. Mwah, tighto. Puzzle Wobble is working. This is brilliant. Right, that is... There's no way to describe that other than lumpy. Oh god, I'm gonna die. I don't like it. Yeah, I've just been killed. That's no good. Right, so I've put the D-pad in incorrectly. Start works. I can't test select. The B button works, I think. Yeah, I'm shooting stuff, look. Right, this isn't the puzzle bobble I remember. Fine there. So, alright, so there's something wrong with the D-pad, but the console works. And look at that screen! I never used an original Game Boy, but I know for a fact that it did not look as good as this. Let me turn the lights off and you get an idea of just how good this screen is. If you ever played a Game Boy back in the day, you'll know for a fact you couldn't see the screen like that on an evening. That's brilliant. That is really genuinely cool. Right, so I'm quite disappointed the speaker isn't working, and also the D-pad, but that's fine. As promised, I've pulled the console back apart. I've screwed this cover for the cartridge port in, so now you can see. Turns out a screw should go through here and a screw should go through here. That's through this black part on the board and that black part, which I thought they needed screws, but neither of them would tighten down. Upon closer inspection, the bottom housing is damaged as well, but luckily it's only really this post, and this one's just a little stripped out. So what I'm going to do, because they're threaded all the way to the bottom, is just put some longer screws in. But in the meantime, I can get this thing positioned back in the case, and I don't have a reason to take the bottom half of the console out anymore. So you know, once this goes into position, that should be it. I think if I get one of these really long screws, I should be able to get away with installing it in the console, because it's not going to poke through the other end. They went down, they tightened up nicely, so I'm happy that this bottom housing is completely usable. So I've got my multimeter in ohms mode, I put it on the speaker, and it gives me a reading of 11 ohms. This is an 8 ohm speaker, but the speaker itself is okay. So it's either a problem with the kit or a fault with the motherboard, but regrettably it's not going to be as simple as just taking the speaker out and replacing it. Well, there's the reason why the D-pad doesn't work. It normally helps if the carbon contacts are facing the board, doesn't it? As I said I would, I've gone away and done some digging about the speaker. Most people on the internet say it's rust and corrosion inside the headphone jack. So if I short this pad to this pad, then I'll pretty much tell the thing that the headphones are unplugged, and it'll always try and play the sound out of the speaker. And then when it goes back together, very quickly we'll see whether or not the sound's working. And if the sound is working, I can then remove this bodge wire, take the headphone jack off and clean it. If the sound isn't working, then I'll say, right, it's not a problem with the headphone jack, it's a problem with the amplifier circuitry on the board. Switch it on and we should hear a noise. Haha, there you go. So it's just corrosion inside the headphone jack. Ooh, that's a lot better as well. D-pad clicks. Hitting select seems to skip it through things. I think select's working. Let's just keep spamming the A button and push start. Right, well those speakers are working, no problem. Right, the volume wheel works. God, I've not heard that tune in a while. I've got this control wheel which, oh wow, that's spinning a lot more freely as well. Although, that might be because the console's not clamped together. If I clamp it, it doesn't want to spin as freely, if you see. So, you know, I mean, it does still spin, but I'm probably going to take a file and just remove that little notch that's sticking out there. You can see that I'm removing the headphone jack, so all I did to do that was just use some high quality solder wick and a bit of flux. I set the iron to 370 degrees, heated up all of the pins until the solder had been pulled away, and then I was just able to remove the headphone jack by hand. I've also gone and resoldered all the pins for the cartridge port, just because they were looking a bit worse for wear. So I added fresh solder, lots of flux, and just went back and forth, and I've given it a clean. And now I think they look pretty good, and they should be nice and reliable. I've cleaned the headphone jack up. You'll never get it perfect, and obviously the outside pins don't matter because they're getting soldered down. What's important is, I've scrutinised it under a light, and the inside of the port is looking good. It's soldered. Let's test it out. Bing! There we are, that's the work done then. I think we can thank this electrical contact cleaner. So we're finally done with the bottom PCB. I think realistically the only thing that's left for me to do is just to file away this tiny little nub so the contrast wheel spins freely. I've decided I'm going to try and modify this housing so that I can pretty much put some screws into it. I've cleaned off all the residue, and I did that using a screwdriver stood pretty much vertically, and I just went back and forth like this for 5 minutes just to get all the glue off of here. I've used some alcohol and a cotton bud to clean it up, so that's all good. My real problem here then is these 4 screw posts that are broken off. You see 1, 2, 3, 4. Because what I want to do is go into FreeCAD, just modify a new post, 3D print 4 of them, super glue it to the housing, give it a day to cure, and then the theory is I'll have 4 solid screw posts again, and I can screw the console back together without having to spend £15 on a brand new housing. Before I started gluing anything down, I've realised there's just no way this is going to work. So instead of trying to glue those tiny things down and praying they don't snap off and then swearing as they snap off, I've decided, why don't I just modify this model? You see it shifts left to right a bit. So I've taken the model, and I was going to modify it quickly, and quickly ended up being about half an hour of work. I've pretty much just embedded the screw posts into here. I've made them thicker. I've designed it so that these posts stick out and it'll be a friction fit into the case. I've gone and changed the widths and so on of various different walls, and I've pretty much tried to make it the best 3D model I can. If it does turn out to fit and work, I'll pretty much upload a remix of the person's model to Thingiverse, because obviously this isn't an original model by me, it's just something that I've modified. But I'm hoping now that I can print this, it'll friction fit into the body of the Game Boy, and we'll be able to finally secure the entire thing together. Can you spot the problem? It obviously doesn't fit. Why doesn't it fit? Because funnily enough, a hole that's this big isn't going to receive a cylinder that's that big. And if I'd actually thought about this before doing the work, I would have realized that. So the path to salvation is to measure the size of this hole, shrink this cylinder down to the correct width, and we'll be okay. This thing fits absolutely perfectly. Like, you know, like a glove. Like, look at that. I'm really pleased with it. I haven't yet installed the screen. What I'm going to do instead is just quickly put it into the housing. Right, so we're in the housing. I'll fit that in place because I just wanted to show it off. If I now put this together, it all lines up exactly as you would expect, and then I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but I've checked and all 4 of the screw holes align perfectly with the posts that I've added. So in other words, as long as I can drive the screw into here without it snapping off, I'll be able to super glue this frame in place, load the screen into the frame, and put this Game Boy together, and I'll have saved the money on having to buy a new front panel. And then furthermore, I'm going to make the 3D model available so that if you have a similar project, you can download it and do it yourself. I've gotten all the screws into the same depth they'll be when the thing's assembled. There was no creaking or cracking or anything like that, so I think this is potentially a winning design here. All that I need to do is pretty much assemble it. I'm not going to screw these down this evening because I've got to glue this into place. So I'll obviously install it, get everything ready, I'll glue it down, I'll screw the board into position, and then tomorrow in the morning or the afternoon or something, I can just plug this half of the sandwich into that half and then stick it together, and then these 4 screws here will actually have something proper to bite down into, and this console, other than the glass front, will be complete. Here we are then. You can see I've taken the console, I've given the screen a good clean. There's a tiny mark there, I'll just remove that off camera. The point is, the screen cover has arrived. So you want tweezers with a nice sharp point, and make sure they're clean, which mine are. And then you can pretty much just put the tweezers in, remove the adhesive, you know, you get rid of the plastic, that sort of layer that's covering it. Then you peel off the internal layer. I still can't see through that, and I'm wondering if I'm supposed to be able to see through it, because you'll notice that's got double-sided tape on it. So I'm going to give it one more go, just in case there is a bit that I've missed. Yeah, there you go, look. So, very careful. You don't want to touch the glass with your fingers, because you'll transfer oily fingerprints to it. But there we are, that's good. So that white piece there is supposed to stay there. So I'm just going to place this gently off to the side, and then I'm going to clean that mark off the screen. Now, bear in mind, you are never going to get this screen perfect. You can't just sort of leave the protective layer on and stick the screen in the housing, because obviously you have to peel the layer off at some point, and the layer covers the whole panel. And inevitably, when you're putting the console back together and so on, you're going to poke it with your finger and put a nasty fingerprint on there. So I just use a piece of kitchen roll. You sort of do this. You know, you breathe onto the screen like that, and then you just go back and forth with the tissue. You'll do that, you'll get it as clean as you can. Remember, don't try and make it perfect, because you'll be sat there for a very long time trying to make it perfect. You have to understand that when the cover's on, and when the thing's actually switched on, you're not going to see 99% of the defects anyway. And then I just like to use a bit of cloth. I'm actually using the shirt that I'm wearing. I'd say that's looking pretty good. So now, I'll just get this piece, lever it on. So if I just put this down here, I'm going to lever it over the top, make sure it goes the right way around, and then we're just going to gently set it down, let go, let it fall into place, and then you can just push down. Just going to use a tissue to kind of buff it in. You know, it's back together. All of the buttons work, they click nicely. The volume wheel works, it's adjustable. This thing clicks in as it should. I can adjust the screen. But either way, the console's back together. I can put in Double Dragon, which is a game I've never played. I can flick the switch to on. There we are, and the game boots. And as I've said already, all the buttons work and stuff. So, you know, this has been a huge amount of time. Whether or not it was time well spent, I don't know. But the point is, this console can now get listed. And, you know, it's gonna get used again by somebody. There you have it then. Hope you found the video useful. Hope you enjoyed it. I know it certainly took me way longer to put this thing together than I anticipated. In the real world, it took me about a month. For you, it'd probably take you a couple of hours, maybe an afternoon. Worst case, if you're a complete beginner, you know, it'd take you an entire weekend. Obviously, the reason why it took me so long is I was doing it in between other jobs because naturally I have a business to run and emails to send, invoices to generate, and complaining to do. And so, of course, I can't spend all my time just fixing these old consoles. With that being said, though, I am really glad I put the effort in to fix it because it certainly taught me a lot. It taught me a bit more about 3D modeling and the fact that I was able to come up with the idea to glue the frame in, and then that means I can secure the whole console together without replacing the entire housing. Obviously I had to clean away the corrosion to make the speakers work. I had to file away the frame to get the screen to fit. I had to do all these other little auxiliary things to actually make it work. But like I said, I'm glad I put the effort in because it means the console keeps its original charm. I mean, it wouldn't really be an original Game Boy if I replaced the front and the back and the speaker and the buttons and the button membranes and the screen, would it, you know? Instead, all I've had to do is buy a new front, which was inevitable because the front was missing, buy a screen, and then the front housing, or should I say the front board that powers the screen. But that is the bare minimum of stuff I had to buy. I mean, even the batteries were in a drawer somewhere. I didn't even have to go out and buy those. It was brilliant. The point is, though, at the end of it, I've ended up with a console that, whilst it's clean and fresh and in good condition, it's not absolutely immaculate. In other words, it's not a museum piece, and that's the way that I like it, because if this thing looked like a museum piece, you'd be too scared to actually play it for fear of dropping it, or for fear of getting a scratch in the screen, or leaving it in your bag, and I don't know, a little bit of juice goes in it, and you're hastily cleaning it away and praying that your precious console doesn't get damaged. I didn't want this to become a console that sat in a drawer for a year, just like that, and then someone picks it up and goes, and then puts it back, because there was no point fixing it otherwise. Why would I go through all the effort and the trials and the tribulations to fix a console that's going to sat unused? You know, it's like the people who have those really rare or the classic cars, and they have them fully restored, just to sit in the garage, never ever to be driven, not even once a month, you know, not even for 10 minutes, just to sit there and look at, like it's Grand Theft Auto or something, you know? And we all have 100-car garages, and you never get out 90 of the cars, and they just sit there. You know, that's obviously only a game, so it doesn't matter. But in the real world, you know, you want to use the stuff if you put the effort in to fix it. At the very least, the repair should teach you something, I think, and this repair has certainly taught me a lot of stuff. Like I say, very glad I went through the effort to actually do it, and I think to do it properly, or at least as properly as I could without replacing a bunch of parts needlessly. If the video taught you something, if you enjoyed it, if it provided a nice escape from what you were doing for the day, then feel free to leave me a like. Even better if you choose to subscribe, that way you'll be notified when I create new videos. I think the next one is coming out in a week or maybe 2 weeks' time, and it'll be covering a computer that's older than I am. You know, I'm 25, so the computer is at least as old as that. I won't provide any more spoilers other than, as always, it wasn't plain sailing, because these jobs are never plain sailing. I've not even started editing that one yet, so I don't know how long the video is going to be yet, but fingers crossed it should be sort of 20-25 minutes. That being said, though, I hope you enjoyed the thing, as I say. I'm going to get out of here for now, so until next time, I'll see you later. Take care for now, goodbye, and enjoy the rest of your day.